Tim from Grants Pass, Oregon. Do you have a question or comment for Dennis?
Yeah, hi. This 5G technology that's being created here on Earth, if you were president, would you be testing it to see if it has harmful effects? And if it is proven that it does, would you be able to get rid of it?
I absolutely believe we need to do a lot of testing on the 5G. Where I live, I'm very fortunate. Where I live, 5 miles down the road, there's no cell signal, and 10 miles down the other way, there's no cell signal. So I live in a virtual dead space. There's no Wi-Fi out of my house, no cell phone signal, and the internet companies won't set up internet in my neighborhood. So I'm one who actively avoids a lot of this radiation from radio transmission. So I would definitely want to do a lot of studying into this 5G, especially knowing how microwaves affect cells on the micro level. Higher frequency waves do not look too promising to me. We could eventually end up making baked potatoes out of our brains with this 5G. So really, we need to look at all the broad spectrum of the network or the radio signals that the FCC has auctioned off here recently in the last 20 years. Certainly, we need to look at any communication device that uses high-frequency radio waves to transmit the signals, because they're going through not only our organic tissue, but the organic tissue of everything else on this planet. We could essentially be just making giant microwave transmitters throughout the planet, and as the planet is warming up, we don't need to increase microwave transmissions.
Yeah, thanks. And another thing, have you seen anything or about these aliens?
No, I haven't seen much about aliens. I'm always been interested in outer space and extraterrestrial life forms. I had a plan when I was younger that I wanted to join the Air Force, go to the Air Force Academy, get a doctorate degree, and go join NASA so I could go out into space. So I'm really interested in the possible contact with extraterrestrial species. I've said this on a number of different places that I'm a Star Trek socialist, and that I believe that technology could help remove our greed ambitions, money is a tool, and I believe that the biggest tools have the most of it. So we need to get away from that focus of greed for money and focus more on a greed for knowledge. We need to really engender a hunger and desire for education, for knowledge, for skills. Hopefully, by providing an enriched educational experience for everyone. A lot of people are talking about free college, but a lot of people that I've seen aren't prepared for college when they get their high school diploma. So we really need to be focusing on early childhood education as well. Boy, I go wide when I go for it, don't I?
So yeah, Dennis, this is Bob again. When you said you're a Tibetan minister or a Buddhist minister?
Yes, sir.
You must have heard of Lobsang Rampa somewhere along the line.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever heard of him?
I have. Yeah. my spiritual journey is always getting me to explore not just the Buddhist side, but I'm always, in fact, just before I got my ordination as a Buddhist minister, I was studying Sufism and whirling dervishes and reading the Quran. So it's, for me, once again, it's like I don't know if you guys remember that labyrinth game where you had the board with a bunch of holes in a maze and a marble in it, where you'd tilt the board around until you fell into a hole. That's kind of what Buddhism has been for me. Is that I began my spiritual exploration when I was about 16 or so, and eventually, by the time I was in my late 30s, I realized that I was a Buddhist. So I'm always interested in learning a lot more about spiritual philosophy and religion.
Well, Lab Singh Grandpa, he wrote 22 books, and he was a lama in the Shakpuri monastery. He was raised in the Shakpuri monastery as a medical doctor, and he talked about the history, how they go back 5,000 years, and one of his, I read all 22 of his books, and I would highly recommend that you look at them and read them, like The Third Eye. But one of my favorite books was the name of his book was My Trip to Retz was the name of the book. It's a real thin book. It's 8.5 by 11 and maybe 30 pages long, and he talks about how the senior lamas took him up into the mountains of Tibet, and they went into this room where they had the advanced technology, all the saucers that they fly out of there, and they put him in this machine that basically parked their physical body and put him in their astral body, and they strapped in, and then they went to Venus, and the planet Venus, which operates primarily on the astral plane, and Retz is the spiritual capital city of our solar system, and he explains what he saw there and everything he did, and talked about the reality of UFOs and all that kind of stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing, you would find that most interesting.
Yeah, I'm into a lot of different things. I mean, that's when I was 18, I attended a wedding of one of my mother's friends, and I was sitting at a table with a CEO from IBM, an airline pilot, and a lawyer, and I was like, I don't really know how to talk to any of these people. So at that point, I just decided that if I'm not going to get the education I can get from a institution, then the best thing I can do is to educate myself through as many different resources and sources that I can. And I think that really is what makes me different from a lot of the other candidates that are running for president. Is that I have no problem running in the circles of different people. I don't know if you guys know Les Wexner, but he was the owner of the Limited and the Gap. I've met him a couple of occasions. Jack Black, the actor. My mom, I used to have a picture of me and him where I met him the first time. My mom, before Jack got famous, used to say, "Hey, your friend's on TV." But I've also grew up very poor in Appalachia, so being able to depend on yourself and scrap and survive are very valuable skills that I've developed through my living. So I think that's really what makes me different than a lot of people is I can feel comfortable at a moonshine still as well as I could at a CEO board. Well,
you're absolutely right. You're not going to get a real education inside of our educational system. That's only for the 8 to 5 working force. The real education comes from knowing the right people and who to contact. And that brings up another question that Val may want to go into more detail and share with you, and that is the real guides. The real guides are a group of people that are on this planet to help wake people up to what's really going on everywhere, not only in creation but beyond creation. I mean, it's an education that can't even be put hardly. You can hardly write about it. It is so highly educational that words can't describe it. Perhaps Val could tell you a little bit more about the Real Guides and what they're here for. Val?
Yes. Maybe if Sandy's here, maybe I'll pass it over to her, so let her give a chance to talk too, since our time is somewhat limited. Sandy, are you there?
Well, she says she's got a sore throat and can't hardly talk very well. So.
Okay, then I'll take it. Yeah, Dennis, we're associated with we call them the Real Guides, and they're basically just like anybody else, but they're more aware of what's going on, and this is on all levels, like Bob mentioned. This is even into the other, you could say, life levels or realms, and it gives they help us to see a whole lot bigger picture of what's going on, and that enhances our survival. And this has nothing to do with religion or spiritual teachings, which is for some people mind-boggling. Well, if it's not related to spiritual, religious, or metaphysical or psychic, what is it? Well, that's what their education is basically about. Is just what is beyond all that, or what is not really beyond even. It's just what else is there. So it's really an adventure, and it takes us to probably the last subject we talk about today, which is, I mentioned before, the Underground Railroad. And basically the Real Guides are helping us to get through the restrictions and the people after us, just like the slaves, Harriet Tubman and the help she gave to the slaves getting to freedom. Well, they're doing the same thing with us. They're helping us get through this matrix, all the restrictions, the authoritarians that we have to face, the military-industrial complex, all the things you think of, and helping us to basically to gain our freedom. So that's in a nutshell. And maybe you could talk about the Underground Railroad a little bit, and what you found and how it relates to what your presidential campaign is about. Maybe you can relate it somehow to what you're doing with the campaigning and all.
Well, my study of the Underground Railroad really got kicked into gear when I moved back down here to southern Ohio, Ironton, Lawrence County. My grandmother grew up across the river in Kentucky, Ashland, Kentucky, and my grandfather grew up here in Ironton. And when I was younger, I watched this movie with Cicely Tyson, A Woman Called Moses. You talk about Harriet Tubman. And that was my first really introduction into the Underground Railroad. But I grew up in West Virginia, so there's a lot of Civil War sites across the places where I was living and exploring as a youth. And so when I moved back down here to southern Ohio around 2006, 2007, I started reaching out to the librarians, and of course, unless you educate yourself, the only thing you're going to get is secondhand knowledge, and oftentimes that secondhand knowledge is not really the best source. So I started reading, like I said in the biography, I had 30 books about the Underground Railroad and associated things. I read books about early river traffic and commerce on the Ohio River, because I started finding articles in the local paper about slaves being pressed into bales of hay. But really, how that relates to my own experiences as far as running campaigns, it's really about a grassroots effort. People may not know each other as being neighbors and working towards the same goal, but it's just making that initial contact and showing how not only does this benefit the person who we're looking to help, but it also benefits you in the long run. This is one of the things that I push for when it comes to reparations, because I point out that there was a great deal of white people who were defrauded from the coal industry by being paid in scrip. It's the same thing with slavery, where they weren't paid at all, or they were paid less than what their efforts were worth. When I point out, when we go to reparations for those who suffered in slavery, we also need to start, after that's taken care of, we can start looking at the other people who were harmed by the harmful petrochemical industries from extraction, not only of coal but of oil, and now we're seeing natural gas. We need to see reparations for people who are harmed from environmental and ecological disasters. Really, the Underground Railroad was a grassroots effort and a network of people who didn't want credit for what they were doing. They just wanted to do something right, and I think that's what a lot of people want out of life is they don't want credit for doing something right. They just want to be doing the right thing, and we need to be inclusive when it comes to a lot of these issues. I've hit on the Green Party a number of times, telling them, every time I've run, I've gotten people from both sides of the aisle voting for me because I present to them the issues that I'm running on as in framing the message the best that they can understand it. So we really need to create a broader consensus and elevate and educate everybody to at least a minimum level. That way we can get a genuine output for the better of everybody. And really, bottom line, I think it's all based in education. And the better we can educate our communities, the better that they can see how they can make changes on their own, as well as supporting the larger picture changes that I would support as far as creating a renewable infrastructure and reducing our need for fossil fuels, as well as increasing community employment through renewable energy programs.
Thank you, Dennis. We have online also Ariana from Stanton, California. Ariana, do you have a comment or question for Dennis? Okay, if not, we're about ready to wind it up, but if anybody else who's already asked a question or commented, would they like to come in again and do you have more questions or comments for Dennis before we wind it up?
Yes, this is Claudia in Texas. I just wanted to thank you, Dennis, for bringing your position forward, and hopefully good luck to the best candidate, that the best man win. And I'm looking forward to seeing your presence on the ticket.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. And everything that we can do as a group in agreement with saving the all-natural environment, and I don't mean just saving it, I mean supporting it. Supporting the all-natural environment that supports us, and to look forward to the future years of our young children, the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, the 7-year-olds, the teenagers. They have brilliant ideas that are not brought forward that could really turn this mess that we've created around and help us get it straightened out. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of hope for the youth. A lot of people say that they're lazy, but they're just not given the opportunity. There's a lot less opportunity growing up for kids now than I had as a youth. At least we had public swimming pools when I was a kid. They don't even have those now. So we really need to engage a lot of these younger folks, especially in the electoral process, because if they're not participating, we're going to end up with the same messes that we've had for generations now.
And anybody else would like to comment?
I just have a suggestion, or try to share that the new presentation has a song that goes, "New you. And that's if a person sincerely wants to get some real guidance and a real education. They can test it for themselves like 10, 15 minutes before they go to sleep each night, and maybe the same in the morning, and see what life shows you. See ya, and good luck.
Thank you.
Yes,
yeah,
Dennis.
if anybody's interested in more of the issues that I have or the things that I'm running on, I have a website. It's www.dlpotus2020.com. Lots of information on there. I'm about to put up something. I don't know if you guys know about Martin Luther and his 95 Thesis, but I've kind of mirrored Martin Luther's 95 Thesis in a thesis statement that I've made about freedom of the press and the press not being held up to its responsibilities under the First Amendment. That'll be coming out this week, and next week my renewable infrastructure investment program should be coming out. So I think you guys will be really interested in both of those.
And that'll be on your website.
Yep,
Is that
on
correct?
my website. Yes, on my website, www.dlpotus2020.com.
Okay. The way I contacted you initially was on Facebook, so you're active on Facebook as well?
Yep. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I think that's it.
Okay.
You got to connect electronically to the youth sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's all about community and supporting each other for better survival, and that's what we do. And I see that you're attempting to do that too. So good luck with your campaign, and let's see what we can do together to offset what's going on with the planet and do something better for it and for others as well. So thank you again for being on, Dennis. Good luck with everything.
Hey, one last plug. I'm going to be in Idaho next weekend for the Eco Summit out there. Idaho Green Party is having their first annual convention and Eco Summit in Boise. So information will be available online if anybody wants to come out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dennis. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank everybody. Thank you for coming on, everybody.